Vegas Circle podcast with your hosts, Paki and Chris. We are people who are passionate about business, success, and culture, and this is our platform to showcase the people in our city who make it happen. On today's podcast, we're going to be diving into a developer's wisdom on what it takes to build a master plan community and the future of Las Vegas real estate. Welcoming a guest to the circle, founder of Red Ridge Development, Mr. Patrick Brennan. So,
hello,
circle, brother. Welcome. Good to finally have you on, man. We've been talking for a couple years now, man. So, was recently at your ribbon cutting for Cello Towers that just kind of came on board with the sales center and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. But first, we want to kind of talk about origin in Symphony Park. So that's the kind of mothership of everything, right? And so can you kind of share with our listeners what you're spearheading right now that's just opened up in Symphony Park?
Yeah, it's exciting times for Las Vegas. You know, it's been a long time coming. Yeah. There's been a lot of different proposed projects on Symphony Park. But I'll go back to the origination of Symphony Park. Well, even before that, you know, our name, origin at Symphony Park, which is the 5.9 acres on the north end of the master plan of Symphony Park, came from the fact that that area was where Las Vegas was created as a town, as a city. So in that general area of downtown, especially with the Union Pacific Railroad, which Symphony Park was the location of the Union Pacific Railroad rail yard, it was really the founding area. Oh, interesting. So, it's pretty incredible. A lot of history down there. It's a great location, obviously, centrally located within the 95, the 15, downtown, the Strip. But it has gone through a lot of different iterations. So, as it started off, as I said, as the Union Pacific Railroad, the city bought it. They completely remediated the land, so it was a brownfield. It had diesel fuel from when they were storing the rail cars, but they cleaned it all up, which is great. So it's all certified, it's clean now, and that's where the start of development happened with the Smith Center, which is a top 10 global performing arts theater, and they receive obviously all the top 10 Broadway shows. It has the Discovery Children's Museum, and then the Lou Ruvo Brain Institute for specializing in Alzheimer. And memory care came in with a beautiful building designed by Frank Gehry. And that kind of started where Symphony Park was coming around. You know, in 2008, there were a lot of talks about potentially housing NBA basketball stadium, one point an MLS stadium. There were huge master plans, all in Symphony Park,
oh, wow.
high rises.
Okay. Wow.
And then 2008 hit, and everything kind of reset with, you know, the global financial crisis. And I think it actually was great for Las Vegas because a lot of those things, you know, as we see, belongs more on the Strip with the stadiums and the activity and just the general, you know, connection to the airport, to the obviously the hotels, the casinos, the restaurants. It all flows more natural in those spaces a little bit. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's great to have those items in downtown and certain professional teams to be downtown, but it also makes sense that it's near in proximity for walkability for the stadiums. So in 2008, after 2008, there was a huge focus from the city to diversify the economy. You know, we really, even though our hotel, casino, tourism, convention will always be a center core of business, how do we get beyond that? How do we start, you know, diversifying our economy, grow it to a point where it's naturally able and sustainable to weather any additional downturns, which we always have as a capitalist society. We'll always have ebbs and flows. The city's done a great job. They really have. I mean, the sports teams was a big part of that. You know, a lot of people don't remember how, you know, in 2008, we didn't have sports teams, and it really was still taboo and a fear of, well, what happens if sport teams come here? What's going to happen?
Gambling issues, all the stuff.
And then obviously acceleration into internet gaming. And they really started to take note and said, okay, this is something that is already across the country, you know, and there's gaming actually in 48 states. A lot of people don't know that, but gaming is legal in 48 states in some form. So that sort of diluted that argument. And then obviously the Golden Knights coming in, the huge success with the Knights, and then it just spilled right over into every other sports team now, not really going from no desire to be here to then
everybody
being on the outside, right, and not even and clamoring to get in. So that was one big part. Obviously, Formula One was a huge surprise. You know, I think we got a couple things, but I've been to a few races. I'm a big F1 fan. You know, it's growing pains. I was at the first inaugural of Miami. It was tough, and then they figured it out now. And I think Vegas is it's gonna come around. I think they're doing a good job already with a lot of the local outreach to make sure that locals are more informed, are participating more. You know, getting early tickets at a more affordable price point. I have no involvement in F1. Again, I'm just a fan, so I like seeing it here. It's a cool sport to follow. So getting back to downtown, so then downtown was really, okay, where is downtown going? You obviously had the late, great Tony Hsieh, did an incredible job with East Fremont. You know, his vision for downtown, I think, spurred the whole movement of growth, of diversification into downtown, brought a lot of incredible and forward-thinking his business, but also, I mean, he had like a llama park and Airstream and really cool stuff that you know, people would normally never do, but it definitely started to define kind of a funky culture that attracted more residents. We obviously had the Soho Towers, Newport Towers, Ogden, and then Jewel coming in, and you saw people moving in, and which was good. And then we started to look at, well, you know, where's the growth going to continue to go on? And Symphony Park was definitely the special place. So Symphony Park is 61 acres. It was developed and designed during Oscar Goodman's tenure as mayor. Is really his vision. They did a great job. So it is technically its own private neighborhood within the city, which is incredible. Awesome. I mean, that really does not exist anywhere else in the country. To have 61 acres in the urban core, in the CBD, and you know, they did a great job. One of the most important things that they did, it was very forward thinking. I don't even think they thought how important this would become, even into today's world, is all the parcels go all the way to the street. So what that means is, as the developer, we have to build our sidewalks, and we maintain them within the Symphony Park design guidelines, but they're all private property. So as much as we are welcome to everyone to come and visit, we are able to create a secure and safe place. So even at Parkhaven, you see at all the other projects in the Smith Center, there's private security, there's cameras. You always see school buses down there with children visiting, whether it's the Smith Center or Discovery Children's Museum. They do parks. I think there was a cheerleading competition in the park over the weekend when I was down there. I mean, it's really a completely different environment from what is happening in the medical district to what's happening in the Arts and Brewery district to East Fremont, which is what you want to see too. It's great. I mean, when you're in Manhattan, you know, you jump to different neighborhoods that all
have a
run into
feel.
each other. I mean, you can be walking in New York and you go from Soho, and next thing you know, you're in Little Italy. The next block, you're like, oh, I'm in Chinatown. Like, this is incredible. And it just kind of naturally flows, but they are all very distinct neighborhoods. And we're really starting to see that as a city, which is really cool from a culture standpoint, from the restaurateurs. You know, the Arts and Brewery District are really finding their cue. What I would call is like Brooklyn and Williamsburg in the early 2000s, 2008, where you had a lot of amazing chefs that were working for restaurants under, you know, Michael Mina, Todd English, incredible chefs, but all that talent. And then they're like, well, I want to branch off and start my own thing. And that's occurring now with James Tree, Esther's Kitchen, and a lot of what's happening, you know, 1228, which is a Wolfgang Puck, with his son kind of taking the lead.
We were just talking about that last night. We were just talking about that last night.
Unbelievable. And it's not branded. It's not branded Wolfgang Puck. Like, you don't know that.
That's awesome.
But it's his son.
Oh, so we didn't know that.
Somebody just told us last night, the owners of Feature we just had on. They were just talking about it. So
and it's packed all the time.
That's
and
pretty cool.
But they did a great job with it because it has like a little bakery. It's got the restaurant. It's got a great bar. So it kind of serves multi-purpose for the neighborhood. So you have that happening. And then Symphony Park is kind of what I call like your Tribeca. I mean, it's really meant for like the neighborhood. You got safe streets. You have kids to play in there. There's the park. So that's where we started to really say, okay, if we're going to be able to do high rise, which really hasn't been done since City Center, how are we going to do it? And where can it go? And quite honestly, the Strip is not the right place right now. I mean, there might be some developments down the future that it might occur, but the Strip is really continuing its reemergence as just being, the epicenter of tourism for global gaming, convention, now sports. And Vegas needed something of its own identity to call its own neighborhood and its own urban core. And that's what Symphony Park is. It's a very, very special place. It's, again, with already Parkhaven now being there, Auric 2, Auric 3, which is another mid-rise, and then a 22-story high-rise with all for rent. So Cello Tower is the first product, though, that is actually purchased.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And they're putting a hotel right there, too, right?
They
On the
are.
corner right
yeah.
by. Okay.
Yep. So Jackson Shaw is doing a 441-room hotel.
Okay.
When they'll have 3-meal restaurant, it'll be servicing. It'll service the World Market Center, which they when Blackstone bought it, they built about a 300,000 square foot expo that's year round, so that convention space goes.
This is all within
just Symphony Park.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then I know Cleveland Clinic, they're looking to expand and go more into some of the medical tourism space. And then obviously, you have what's happening in Medical District with UNLV Medical School, the renovation of UMC, and the city putting in all brand new infrastructure there to support new development for a whole medical research, treatment, tourism, medical tourism, which is huge.
And we need that. You have the Bostons and a lot of the other cities that kill it. Now we're getting that in Vegas, which is awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible. So, but again, we needed something that really resonated with locals. And I think, for me, it was unique because I'm born and raised here. My family's been here since the 1950s, so we're, multi-generational. But I left. I worked on City Center during my master's at UNLV. I left. I got national development experience, institutional capital, working in the biggest cities with, some of the biggest equity partners, debt lenders, and came back to Vegas. And I could see from all the other development cities and them starting to emerge what was really happening in Vegas. So I started engaging a lot with the city of Las Vegas, with the urban economic development team, with Mayor Goodman, and just, really starting to understand, what's their vision. And they're good. I mean, it's definitely the best pro-business, pro-development city that I've ever worked with. I mean, we almost have a concierge for business development, which never happens. I mean, it's pretty unique for Vegas, but it's very welcome. And so that's where we started. And really the focus was, we have, first we had a lot of restaurants, which is rare to kind of enter. We had a lot of restaurants. We didn't have enough residents. So now we focus on residents. We built apartments with Parkhaven and the others to do proof of concept that people really wanted to live in this neighborhood. They wanted to live in the proximity. And we knew, you being a local, we always laugh and say, you want to live, right off the strip. You don't want to live on the strip. It's nice to touch it. You got to work in it. Get away, but you want to take that break. You want to come back. You want to get out of it and have a sense of relief. And when you focus on the design of that, there's a certain aspect, like you create using more natural light, natural materials, a little bit open space for when people arrive, just to let them, kind of decompress, even just walking in the front door of your building to make sure that that's occurring. And I think even just driving into Symphony Park now, it already starts.
It's a whole different energy.
Yeah, you come across and you drop into that neighborhood, and it all kind of just falls away.
Yeah,
you don't even think you're there. You don't even feel like you're in Vegas.
But how do you educate people on that? Because it's kind of like, for me, I've been here 10 years, not my whole life, but I didn't know this whole history of Symphony Park. I didn't know, how exciting it could be. You see it now as it's beginning to develop, but to have that foresight into, understanding what it could be, like, how do you get the buy-in early and educate the people what the possibility is going to be?
Yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the biggest piece.
So in my former company, Parkhaven was my project start to finish. Full vision, conversation with the city from the early onset, all the way through stabilization, lease up. Those are all kind of, our development terms. But basically, we filled the building, we did all the operations, and now it's just a fully operating, amazing, apartment building. But really, I mean, I was pitching that when it was all dirt, parking lots,
that's a lot of hurdles,
and a railroad. And you really got to pitch the vision and really sell it. And it takes, some good visionaries to understand that. Fortunately, we had some great partners There was some good incentives with the opportunity zone, which also helps. I mean, that definitely was a big push that made Park Haven really successful, at least from the early onset of people really believing in the neighborhood. And then from there, it kind of starts to build. You know, you get the momentum, you get the early adopters who start coming in. They like being
start seeing it.
Yeah, they like being the first ones in the neighborhood. They like to say, you know, I was here when it all started. I remember when there was dirt here, and you know, I feel a strong connection to that. Now with the tower, and you know, how do you sell people on buying it as individuals?
You could test it at a rental. It's hard when you're purchasing.
Very hard. It is totally different. Like, people really think, okay, great, you know, apartment building, you know, condo tower. Oh, it's both residential.
You can get out, you can leave.
If I don't like it, I can leave.
Exactly.
And then I mean, and even just, you know, the capital investment that it is.
Yeah.
Because you have to design everything almost to finish before you can really start selling, and it's a really, you know, hard dynamic to manage, because you're almost like, you know, your design team, even through, you know, and they all kind of change here and there a little bit, but even our units, you know, you're working with the design team, you're working with, you know, the architect, all of the consultants that go with them, and every minor little change, like, we have to update that, you know. But so how do you do it? I mean, you start with renderings is really important. You know, you really can do visuals are good. Storytelling. So we did a whole video. We have an incredible marketing team who came out, really shot the video. You know, I think they did an incredible job. I typically don't like to be as much involved as the story.
Okay.
But they did feel that, and I agree that it's important, because being a local here and telling the story of, hey, people really live here. People are growing up here. This is for locals. And even for my kids who were born here now, it's for the next generation.
The foundation feels right.
Exactly. Yeah, and they will now have a great downtown that as Vegas locals will have ownership of. The Strip is kind of for everybody else, right? Like, hey, we have 42 million, 46 million people coming into town. We build the next, you know, airport out at Sloan, like more, you know, which is great. It's huge. It's best. It's incredible for our economy. But what do the locals have ownership? Where do they really go? Where do we find our identity within the city itself? And that now will be downtown.
Agreed.
Talk a little bit about, like, because I know a little bit just from our conversations, but the Sales Center, right? Like, the Sales Center opened up, you know, Q4 of last year with, you know, Cello Towers. Can you share just the energy of how you guys have sold that and what the percentage is just to date now? It's unreal.
So we, again, I mean, this is a huge credit to the city. I mean, we did design build on that sales center in 60 days. Because we really wanted to push to get
and it
open.
Looks great.
I mean, it's awesome. You come down there. They did a phenomenal job, and we didn't cut any corners. It just was really the efficiency of how we could get our building permits through. And our design team worked in collaboration with the general contractor who built out the space. But we wanted to get open before before Formula One. We wanted to get open, you know, just as a soft opening before we went into the holiday season, because we just felt like it would be great. You know, we can get some people that'll come in. They got a little bit of time off. And then once the new year starts, we will really begin our push for PR and start driving it. As soon as we opened, it was crazy. I mean, there were 15 years of pent up demand. And we only started with, interest lists. Like, you know, we'll you know, you fill out this form, you tell us, you know, what unit you like, a one bedroom den, two bedroom den, a penthouse, what floor you roughly like, and we'll call you and start coordinating you to come in once we actually release the units with a proper price, individual price, you know, your unit, your view, and then and we just started that. So we had over 50%, almost 60% of the building already, you know, of interest.
That's unreal. It's like 240 luxury condos.
At what point do you realize, like, maybe we didn't price it high enough?
Well,
we should put a little bit.
And it's still pretty high too.
It is high.
The
tough part is I want to make it, you know, as the best of a deal as I can. You know, again, being for locals, we really try to do it. The hard part is just construction pricing. You know, I mean, we have to keep our margin for what's required for our capital markets and our debt and our equity partners and what turns they have to see. But for the most part, like, it just kind of shifts with where the construction and the total project comes in. So unfortunately, I wanted to start lower, but we did have to do some adjustments as we came in.
Did they they start around 700? Was that what
700?
Okay, 700,000. Okay,
and
for
then
one bedroom.
for one bedroom. But I mean, really, in comparison to Austin, Denver, Miami, any other cities, I mean, we are steel.
Yeah.
I mean,
Boston. I was
yeah.
just in Boston and New York.
Oh my goodness.
Man.
I mean, it's crazy what the value you still have in Vegas, and we're seeing that, right? Like Austin's kind of overbuilt a little bit right now. They're actually kind of coming down a little bit. Denver, same thing. Miami is, I don't know, they're still out of control. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But we kind of, we're the only one that didn't really take off this time, which is good. I think we actually kind of held back in the good way, and now we're really gearing up. And there's a lot of connection with Miami. How Miami was really kind of a party town and all these things.
Yeah.
And now you see what happened there, and we're sort of kind of falling into the slipstream of that and being like, I don't want to say we're Miami of the West, but you're seeing those similarities of the transition from being like a party destination or really more tourism in and out. They obviously have all the ships and all that, but for us, it's different. But we are seeing that in our own way, and we need to control it our own way. But it's definitely changing a lot.
As far as like being a developer, right? Like, so I know you worked on the Parkhaven project. Like, how long did this take, right? From the first time you got the vision for Origin to like you're open.
Yeah. I mean, Parkhaven was 5 years.
5 years? Okay.
Origin and Cello Tower will be 6.
Up until when it opens? Because it opens, what, 2026?
2026.
Okay.
Yeah, it really started on
so
that
about 6 years. Okay.
2020.
Okay.
Having those early conversations.
Okay.
How do you get the funding for these deals? Because they're massive, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, you have really great partnerships with people who are, have a lot of funding or capital available. When you start this project and it's your brainchild, you have an idea of where you're going to take it and what it's going to look like. What is that? Is that pitch meetings consistently trying to just develop funding, or how does that process work?
I mean, a lot of it is, it's like any other startup, any other, entrepreneur. It starts with who is the person, and they're investing in you. So I say that is the first and foremost. I mean, you can have the best project in the world, but if you can't pitch it, or you don't have the experience, or you don't have the knowledge to really get it from a vision of drawing. I mean, like everything else, we drew it on a piece of paper. Site plan, I have it. It's just literally just drawn.
Look, I'm gonna stop you for a second because you didn't pitch me on it. You just shared with me, and I'm like, okay, when I wanted to buy one. Like, you've done an excellent job with presenting it and giving the history and being involved with everything. I got to give you your props, man, because you've done an excellent job.
Thank you. I
with
appreciate
that.
that. It means a lot.
No, I'm serious.
And, but and passion. So I mean, you got to couple all of those things together. And have a clear and defined business plan. I mean, it can change down the road.
Of course,
you always want to be tweaking it and massaging it and modifying it, but you need to have that clear vision. And then, you're really when you're pitching anything like that, it's who is the person behind it, and then why is this going to be successful? Okay. How is this going to be successful? How does it make a difference? You always hear that. How are you different than anybody else? For us, it was, they haven't built anything in 15 years, and all those buildings. There's been a lot of strides in condo high-rise living that these older places don't have. I mean, we have 40,000 square feet of amenity space. I mean, it's incredible what the facilities we have. I mean, you don't have to leave. Whereas, some of the older buildings, they don't have that, right? Which is fine. I mean, that's just what you built back then. But so that's on the good side. On the bad side is, why has nobody built in the condo tower in 15 years? So you got to talk through that, and you practice, and you have to think about all of the things that you would challenge yourself on, and just make sure that your pitch is as strong as it can be. Your answers are thoughtful, they're realistic, and you just really continue to push. And when the person says no, you just go, okay. You go to the next person. You go to the next person. On down you go.
Cold calling these people? Are they, established relationships? Like, how do you get that foot in the door? You have these great vision. Like, why would they give you that meeting to begin with? For people, somebody trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I mean, everybody kind of has their own story. Mine is just experience and hard work. So I worked for other companies.
Got it. Okay.
And obviously established my background, my history.
building the relationships and
yeah,
stuff.
all of those. And along the road, obviously you pick up a lot of investors. People are watching you. You know, they're almost like a sports team. Like they're following your career. If you start knocking out great projects and you're really kind of hitting a home run every time your project's coming online, people are taking note.
Very much so.
Yeah, everyone has a very keen eye, and from there you can start to see, okay, I might be able to do it, and then you got to make the decision. Are you, there's a lot of nice things about staying with a big company. You can focus. You don't have to deal with the accounting, with the attorneys, with HR, with all those support departments. And if you're going to go off on your own and then develop it, you have to do all of that. So you better be an expert at law, construction, code, design, operations, everything.
Yeah.
And you really got to know it, because as your investors, talk me through all this. So you have to be so versed in so many different categories. And the way you do that is just experience. I mean, you got to really love it. You got to have passion, and then go out and get the experience. And then you can come back, and then you can decide if it's, wherever you're at in your life, are you going to do it or you're not going to do it?
Yeah. So. I love the fact. So, like, for example, I know we've talked a lot about it. So, Origin mixed use project. So to have grocery store, restaurants, retail. Are you able to share what these tenants are? Because I got to ask you, I got to put you on the spot.
Sure.
So do we know who the grocery store is going to be and some of these tenants and restaurants?
So we have a lot of interest on the retail. We can't quite say yet.
Okay.
We're working through.
Get it out of you.
We have executed LOIs.
Okay.
We're working through a lot of the lease agreements. We're also just trying to, we have sort of some of the spaces are already oversubscribed.
Okay.
So we continue to modify and say, well, which one is going to be the best restaurant? Which one is going to be the best grocery store? We have multiple that are interested.
Yeah.
So it's happening.
That's going to be a home run, because people don't realize how important it is to have a grocery store literally downstairs.
Especially in these mid and high rise areas.
Yeah. But what's great is because of Austin, because of Denver, because of Miami, all that proof of concept has been done. And so these guys, a lot of the grocers, and it can even be regional grocers, it can be other national grocers, it can be grocers from other cities like that have created sort of their urban grocer, 12, 15,000 square feet. There's a lot more of them, and they really have honed their business model, and they're excited about Vegas, which is great.
Yeah.
I can tell you that we are very dedicated to making a retail F&B that is not mainstream.
Okay.
So
good.
We've had
something organic. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I can tell you, we had what normally would be a home run for a developer. It's like a plant the flag.
Yeah.
Excited. Major global coffee shop. I'm not gonna say the name.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
You know who it is.
I get it.
And
starts with an S. I'm assuming. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So our retail broker was so excited because he's like, oh my gosh, first call they were in. They were literally like, we're in. Balance sheet,
imagine.
Whole deal. I mean, that's huge for equity partner, for lender, everybody. And that call couldn't have gotten worse for them. Everyone on the call was like, no, that's not what we want.
Yeah.
That is not who we want to be. It's not who this project is. Yeah. Obviously it's great. You had a fiduciary responsibility to share any offer we get. And we just said no. We said, no, thank you. But we want to keep it local. We want to keep it regional. We want, we don't want to have restaurants that you can just go anywhere and find. Yeah. We want to support the groups that come into the neighborhood. We want it to be walkability. And we're very precise. I mean, we've turned away a lot of groups that, quite honestly, I've gone and secret shopped, and, we'll walk in, the restaurant's got, 4 people sat, and they're like, oh, well, we're not taking walk-ins. I was like, oh, okay. Turn around and walk out.
You don't realize what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you do.
And we're a neighborhood of walkability. That's the whole point that we're missing in Las Vegas, is a neighborhood that you can walk downstairs. You don't have to call your friends. You can just take your dog, or your kid for a walk, and you run into your neighbors. You get your groceries. Like, there's a huge part of that we've been missing for almost forever, and this project is really about that. Yeah. And
that's exciting.
Yeah. So we wanted
super
restaurants,
exciting.
and also at the right price point too. That it's not crazy expensive. That you can go to the restaurant 2 or 3 times, or the restaurant. So you can almost be eating out 3 to 4 nights a week, grabbing happy hour. And you're just hanging out, and it's a great time.
Yeah. And what challenges do you see from a mixed-use space, right? Because going from like a Park Haven, where I don't think they have restaurants, right? It's just strictly apartment or housing. Yeah. And then now you're adding in this restaurant space, retail space. From a developer standpoint, what additional challenges do you see from that? Because now it's build out, tenant, occupancy from a lot more different, a whole different dynamic, I would think.
Yeah, it's much more complicated.
Yeah.
So, and even this now with the condo tower and condo mapping and air rights and separation of like APN numbers, which for housing, that's basically, your assessor's office. And we're subdividing 2 parcels under 1 parcel. And then you have air rights above, and you have to, write all these legal descriptions and bifurcate it all from a legal standpoint and for land. I mean, and it goes on your title report, which our title report goes all the way back to the origination of Las Vegas. Wow. So there's a lot more complicated than that, but specifically to your question about like restaurants and the mixed use, yes. I mean, it's very complex on multiple levels. One, your architect is definitely very important, and you need to make sure, even because a lot of architects say, "Oh, I know how to, I can design multifamily, I can design a restaurant." Yeah. But are they really taking into account, your HVAC, your shafts that are going, so all the spaces that are going to be supporting the restaurant in themselves. Are you future thinking for that? Because that can get very costly for a tenant. There's projects that I know of that are they look great, but then as soon as the tenant starts coming in, and they're saying, "Whoa, I got to spend $1 million just to put in the infrastructure, and I haven't even gotten to my finishes yet." So you have to take a lot of that into consideration. You start very early on what your merchandising plan is going to be. Who is your tenant? Who's your target demographic? What would be your preference? Your 1, 2, 3. Your first, second, third choice, and then you start designing your grease traps. Because if you want a restaurant, how is the space going to potentially change as the neighborhood changes or the space transitions? Maybe it's a retail. Maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a bar, maybe it's a nail salon, and it can change for the whole life of that project well after, you may have sold it or moved on. So you have to think of it in so many different facets. And again, a lot of it is just experience, but also then having the right people. So you can have an architect, but it's also great if you don't have that retail experience to have a retail consultant who really knows it. Yeah. Because it's like anything, I'll reference to hospitality, back of house. If you don't get your loading docks right, your grease traps right, your trash right, and all the support and infrastructure, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
That really talks to your experience, because it almost seems like that's elevated development. Like, you may start in the smaller spaces, but be able to go in this mixed use space. You're really at that kind of, elevated tier of development. And, from that perspective, do you see, you talked about exit, essentially. Do you see that these spaces in retail are more valuable, or tenants more valuable, or the combination tends to be more valuable?
The combination is definitely more valuable. So anytime that you are creating synergy between 2 different business models, if you can get it right, is always going to be more powerful. Because the restaurants, I mean, if you're a restaurateur, you say, "Hey, like, this is great. So just in Symphony Park, right? So just the north half of Symphony Park, with Park Haven, Oric 2, Oric 3, Cello Tower, and what's going to be our multifamily in Origin. It's over 1,500 residential units.
Oh, wow. Right in one space.
In a block of each other. Yeah. It's just the north half of Symphony Park.
That's literally like New York City and a lot of other places. Yeah,
so
good point.
Now,
very good point.
So, I mean, you're talking like, okay, so you have 2 bedrooms. You have people that live in a 1-bedroom together. You can be easily 2,500 to 3,000 people in Symphony Park.
Right in that spot. Yeah, you're right.
So you tell me, as a restaurateur, is that powerful for you?
Powerful,
and
they can walk there.
Then you add in Smith Center, and you add in all these other things.
You got Smith Center coming in. You have
point.
people saying, "Hey, I want to get off the strip." I mean, how many times how many times we get phone calls from people visiting, say, "Hey, I'm here for 3 or 4 days. I'm here for a convention. I got to get out of the strip. Like, where do you go? I don't want to go out of this suburb. Where do you go?" And we're kind of like, now we're starting to have it. Okay, go to the Arts and Brewery District. Go to Symphony Park. We'll have these spaces. But so that's very powerful. And then for even the residents above, well, what am I going to do? You can go down, you can walk outside. You don't have to get in your car, and you're in a safe environment, and you can get your food. You can go and hang out. You can run into your neighbors. you don't have to call anybody. You can meet new people just because you walk downstairs. It's very much in New York, Boston, East Coast. You know, hey, you go sit by it's not weird there for people to just go by themselves and sit at a bar or sit at a table and they meet people.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Love that.
It's a little bit more of like, you know, there's just a community aspect. So when
Yeah.
you build community, you build a stronger business model.
That's great, because you don't really see that a lot. Like,
No, not at
I don't
all.
think anywhere outside of.
But now that they've been able to do that,
handful of
and I know you and I talked about this a little bit too. Like, you know, both of us are from the Midwest, right? But I lived in the East Coast for a while too, and Vegas was missing the public transportation. I know you and I talked about this a lot. Can you share like what's going to happen as far as the connection between like Symphony Park, you know, the medical district and the Strip, right? From my understanding, over like the next 7 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, Boring Company. I mean,
Boring
Boring
Company
is definitely doing a tremendous job. You know, I know they're still in their, you know, their plan, their development, but I mean, they have full support from the county, from the city. You know, I know they have some design hurdles, but you know, growing pains in every business, but they do have the support.
Okay.
And I think that it definitely proof of concept with the convention center.
Okay.
And I think it's a phenomenal system to have for us. You know, for Vegas to have quote unquote a subway and public transit is a game changer.
It's huge because you just have to drive.
Yeah,
because it's a pain in the. I mean, for to your point, Formula One, right?
Yeah.
We didn't enjoy Formula One when it was here, but then you have the public transportation come in, and you're having an event, and then obviously with the NBA coming, the Raiders, the Knights, you could get around everywhere, and I think that's what I'm so excited
whenever
about.
you're creating more density, it just is always better to have infrastructure for public transit.
Got it. Yep.
Get people in, get people out, smoother. And the more we have NBA teams, the more our airport grows, the more residential that comes downtown, the more demand it is to come from the Strip to experience downtown, or vice versa for workers who are living downtown that want to live 5 minutes from the Strip. But in about 5 to 7 years, you know, as much as the Boring Company can go, I mean, you could live in Symphony Park and not even own a car. So like, let's talk about this for a second. So you live in Symphony Park, you hop in the Boring Company, you can go to any single one of the hotels, you can go to any of the single stadiums, you can get to the airport, you can get to the Bright Line, and you can be in LA in 2 hours. You can be at the airport flying anywhere in the world with our great airport, which a lot of other cities don't have that incredible airport and ability to really, you know, fly to anywhere in the globe, and then have access to whether you're working in your job, whether you're going to go see sports teams. You can be in and out. You don't even have to own a car.
Yeah.
See, now you speak my language. I love that. Yeah.
And you go downstairs, you get your grocery store, you get your restaurants, and you can come back to you can go back to your neighborhood. And again, that's the whole thing is, where are you finding your identity within your neighborhood? That's
exciting.
And that's what we're really starting to see emerging in downtown, which is great.
I love it. I can talk with you for forever, man. So we want to kind of transition a little bit about, you know, as somebody that values mentorship, right? Us being Vegas Circle. Who's in your circle that's kind of, you know, spoken your life and kind of kept you like on the right track?
A lot. So, you know, I mean, I've been fortunate that I've had some great mentors. I mean, locally, you know, Paul Steelman. You know, Paul Steelman was a huge influence for me. You know, unfortunately, I went to Our Lady, and his daughter and I have gone to school, went to school together all the way through kindergarten, all the way through, all through high school. We've been very good friends, and all through high school, I would just sit at the kitchen table with him, and he'd be designing casinos all around the world.
Yeah,
you know, and he'd
be able to pick his brain. And really just learn.
Sit down there and learn a lot, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And then when I left Vegas, you know, I had a great mentor, Kevin Wisdom, when I was at Aspen Heights Partners.
Okay.
You know, he had a tremendous amount of experience, and you know, really just would, you know, share everything. You know, questions. Hey, what are you doing with this? How is this working? Running into this issue, running into this problem, and you know, so I've been very fortunate to have some really great mentors, but also at the same time, you kind of gotta push them a little bit too, right?
True.
Or ask the questions.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a great wealth of knowledge out there. You know, you just need to sometimes raise your hand and ask the question.
And not be afraid to ask it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was never afraid to ask questions, because I was just like, I'm a sponge.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask you 1.5 million questions until I really understand it. And then also reading. I mean, there's an incredible amount of books out there that just have great insight. You know, when I was at UNLV for my master's, I mean, there was a great book called like Why We Buy. And that's a whole book about the psychology of people making decisions on purchasing and how you purchase or how you design spaces, such as I talked about, where, you know, when people come into a space you can decompress, or, you know, they take 2 or 3 steps in and you can recreate their entire environment to where their psychology changes. So if you're stepping in from New York and you're in a crazy hustle bustle street, how do you, you know, kind of overtake their senses and get them to focus on what you want them to focus?
That's powerful.
And that book is a really great book that talks about.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I haven't heard that book.
It's really cool.
Okay.
And they, you know, even using mirrors. So mirrors just naturally slow people down because they kind of see, you know, in their peripheral, or they look at themselves in the mirror. You just always have this natural ability to look, and it slows people down. So if you want to take a space and have people slow them down, to then kind of focus on something what's right after the mirrors, you can use mirrors to do that.
That's powerful.
Really cool.
That's pretty interesting.
You can use mirrors to angle, and it makes a space feel bigger. So there's really cool spaces or books like that. Walkability by Jeff Speck's another awesome book. It talks about this conversation right now. What are the benefits of walkability? What is the benefits of neighborhoods? How powerful that is, and how people just feel safer in those tight neighborhoods. I mean, you always hear that from New York, from Boston, from these individuals these people that live there forever, their whole life. They don't even leave because they're like, this is my neighborhood.
Got everything. Yeah.
Or they know everybody. They got their bodega, they got their bagel guy, their pizza guy.
And they're scared to leave almost.
Yeah.
They're so safe
and they know every single person there, and they all take care of each other.
Yeah,
very much so.
You know, and even talks about with kids, like how beneficial it is to even slow down and walk your kids to school, or, you know, if you're within distance, ride your bikes together to school one day of the week.
Yeah.
They did this great study in Colombia where they did that because the smog was so bad that the mayor was like, okay, for one day, we're not going to drive cars to help alleviate the smog. And what happened is all these parents and these kids started walking to school or riding their bikes to school. And it greatly enhanced everybody's, you know, just happiness. The kids were happier. They got a connection with their parents more. And then when they said, okay, this has been a great experiment, everyone was like, no, we're going to keep doing this.
That's powerful.
So it's something that, you know, was meant for something else. And then it had this great, you know, sort of domino effect on the psychology.
I love how you brought that up. Like, I'm a big Italian food fan. I was just listening to some of the business owners that own in the North End in Boston, and they talked about how the city and how they have taken care of each other and support each other and given the other person sugar and all this different stuff, even though they're a competitor, but it helps to rise the, you know, kind of the village per se. So this is exciting to see this, man. I applaud you. Yeah, I applaud you. Just business advice, just to kind of leave us out on, what's one nugget you would share with somebody that might be listening that, you know, like you said, you worked in the corporate world and now you branched out to build your own. What would you say to them if somebody that's kind of on the fence, trying to figure out if they want to put their vision?
Yeah, you can always go back to corporate life.
I love that. I love
take the
that.
risk.
I had a feeling
I mean, if you're going to fail, you'll just end up back in the corporate life.
Love it.
So, you know, do it strategically, have your savings, you know, go with, you know, spend your time in your business model, you know, work at night, whatever you have, your free time, just keep drawing, keep perfecting, keep modifying your business model, you know, and then when you really feel it'll never be 100% right, there is a time where you have to do it.
Got to go.
Go. And if you're going to keep failing, and just keep plugging ahead.
Love it.
And then you'll learn more. And if it really, you tap out of your savings or whatever,
gotta go back to corporate. I love it.
So it doesn't matter.
That's real. Yeah, that's real.
Yep.
We always ask all our guests about restaurants. I know you out eating. We talk about food stuff all the time. Give us one gem of a restaurant you and your wife go to in Vegas.
Oh man,
I know you know a lot because we talk about it all the time.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to keep it local.
Okay.
And I have to say Good Pie.
Good Pie.
Good Pie.
They just said it last night. Okay, that's two in a row with Good Pie.
Good Pie.
Okay.
You know, obviously my wife's a New Yorker.
Okay.
And it's you know, they just do it right.
Shout out
and
to Good Pie.
I got to give it to them.
Yeah. Okay, it's two in a row. 2 podcasts back to back with Good Pie.
Good.
Awesome.
Good for them.
I know your biggest focus is origin, but I guess what do you want to leave us out on that we might not have asked you that you want to share?
I would just say for anybody that's, you know, local, come and drive through Symphony Park.
Check it out. Yeah.
Just drive through. If you're down in that area, go down to Main Street, you know, go to Good Pie, go to Esther's Kitchen,
there you
go to 1228. See what's happening down there and go check out Symphony Park.
Awesome.
See all the cranes in the air. I mean, just see what's happening because it's something very special.
It's impressive.
Yeah,
it is. That whole shit.
A lot. You'd be surprised. I mean, the first question we ask people when they come to the sales center is, when was the last time you had Symphony Park?
Yeah.
You know, because it from pre-COVID to post-COVID, it is. I mean, people
it's
come
a whole
in, they're
different
like,
world.
I had no idea this existed. I didn't know this was going on down here.
It's kind of hidden though. Like you can't
It
really
is.
see
It's
from
protected.
a lot of places.
Yeah.
So I would say just come and drive through. Come check out. Come take, if you have a kid, come take them to Discovery Children's Museum. Go to Vic's. If you don't,
the jazz spot. Yeah, you introduced me to them.
If you don't have kids,
Vic's
go to
good.
Vic's. Go listen to some. I mean, they have live music 7 nights a week. Jazz.
And again, this is
awesome
a block
jazz.
down from
Block
the next.
down.
You could walk down
walk
the Vic's.
down
I forgot about Vic.
Go supper club. You can have drinks, dinner, watch a live jazz bar. I mean, it's awesome.
Yes.
Go down there and check it out and see what's happening down there, because I think so many people are, kind of get stuck in their own, vision or whatever, and they kind of feel like, oh, Vegas doesn't have this, whatever.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
And I think people are really going to be able to see it. And even now with all the buildings and all the constructions happening there, people,
this is a whole new energy.
It's not so much you have to sell the vision anymore. People now you can just see it.
Yeah.
And it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, absolute pleasure. Man. I love that you left us out on, supporting the locals. I mean, that's why, Chris and I, my wife, we formed Vegas Circles, because we wanted to give people that platform, specifically the locals, to be able to share what's really happening. So appreciate you and applaud you and support you, man. I can't wait to buy my penthouse at Cello Tower.
I look forward to it.
So get me in there, man. So
I got you.
Appreciate you, man. What's the social handle for does it have a
yes,
social handle?
Cello Tower.
Cello Towers on social handle.
And then Origin Symphony Park.
Okay, so check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
So check it out, man. Support Patrick and what he's doing, and check us out at VegasCircle.com. So appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.